Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the danjohnuniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 226. Remember, if you have questions, send them to us at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I do my best to answer each and every one. Just remember, this is a question-driven podcast, so I don't have guests usually. A few times I have, but it's your questions and I answer them the best I can. Okay, thank you. Let's get started. We have a good one. G emails us and he says, I am trying out for Army Special Forces through the 18X option early 2024. I have heard you mention that you have trained various members of the special operations community, and I'm curious on how you would devise a program for someone prepping for Army Special Forces. Of course, that's it's a big range of things when you say Army Special Forces. There are several different ways you can go. From my experience, I'm not sure the physical training is nearly as important as the mental side. The late great friend of mine, John, who tragically died 12 years ago now. We were having that conversation one time and he just said, it was just the attitude, I will never quit and I will never leave my friends behind. I will never quit. I will never leave my friends behind. This mental focus of never quitting and just was remarkable to be around. I am going to answer the question, but I just want to make sure I set that up first, okay? One thing about my experience, I tend to work with specific teams, and I tend to work in specific teams in certain locations. So for me, when I work with people, a lot of my work with Special Forces is post-deployment and also kind of keeping guys around a long time. One of the issues, like in every elite corps, you're constantly filling in with a lot of people who are new, and a lot of the experienced guys get hurt, or they just life, not just life in the field, but life in general tends to deplete everybody. So one of the things if you go to Dan John University, the workout called the hypertrophy and mobility workout was originally called the post-deployment workout. I set that up because of the need for balancing strength with conditioning, and with mobility, and I even want to say tonic stuff, so that while you're training, you're doing things that will fix issues, especially really, really tight shoulders, tight hips, lower back issues, hamstring issues, and of course that doesn't even include the parachute issues and explosions and all kinds of other stuff. In our inner circle, we have some people who have been part of the advanced parts of the military, and we all respectively keep our distance, and not just the United States and other countries too. But one of the things you get very quickly is something I want to share with you, and this is really important. So if I'm going to circle the whole answer here, this is what I want you to listen to. Many, many times I've welcomed Special Forces into my home, many times. And my neighbor across the street, she one time said that she felt this was the safest neighborhood in Murray. Well, of course, Murray's a pretty safe city, but, because there's always these young men out there who are, work. If I cook dinner, if I make dinner universally, they will always, I was going to say ask to clean up, but it's not ask, it's a demand. And when they clean up your kitchen, I got to tell you folks, it is almost embarrassing. And I do this now myself. So all the spoons, spoon, all the forks, spoon, all the knives are in the same direction. They'll take the cutlery holder, it's got those little divisions, take it out, clean it, rinse it, put it back in. They wipe down every surface. They take off everything off the range of the oven, clean everything. They rearrange the dishes. They rearrange the pottery, the pots and pans. they sweep it to an inch of its life. Gee, that's what I want you to remember. So there's two things here. First, the mental side, and I can't really help you on that. A lot of it on the mental side could just be whatever that would be. I'm sure there's some things at birth. I'm sure there's some things about the way they're raised, and I'm sure there's some things about their adherence to the core, to the cadre, to the group. So number one is the mental side, which I don't know if I can help you get, but try your best that if you take on a challenge, finish the challenge. If you say you're going to do something, do something. The second level is when you do things, this attention to detail is the phrase we used at the old school I was coaching at, but the attention to detail, everything has to be done right. There's a place for everything in place, all these things like that. Finally, let's get to the physical, which I think is the least important of the things I'm going to talk about. But I think, I'm not sure if you have a swimming component in what you have to do, but a lot of it is going to be walking exhausted, rucking, orienteering. By the way, if one of my friends said the best thing you can do to prepare yourself for the really advanced special operations stuff is to get involved in orienteering and figure out how to use a compass and a map and how to get around terrain and how to find easier ways to get around. But you're going to have to get used to the idea physically that you're going to have to make rapid mental decisions under great physical fatigue. Quick mental decisions under massive physical fatigue. So how do you train that? That's tough to do. When I work with them, sometimes I do like to have like a drill where at the end you have to do something that demands accuracy. I took this over. I was helping some young men who are collegiate lacrosse players, and they were doing these conditioning drills, but the conditioning drills didn't have a technical element to it. So what we added was a lacrosse stick. They would do the conditioning drill, and then at the end they had to fire on a net, and then the net was too big, so we just took athletic tape and put corners in, and then we made up some point system. Well, also, here's what's also funny, is now there's a point system, they got even more competitive and took the drill more seriously. But the idea was, in an exhausted state, a tired state in this example, they had to make a decision and they had to use a specific skill. So any way you can build in being accurate while exhausted, attention to detail while tired, I think that's what you want to do. I don't know, run a marathon and then play a chess game. That's kind of silly, but it's that kind of thing if you don't mind. Gee, when I talk to my friend, I'm thinking of one specific person in the inner circle, the idea of, you just have to remind yourself you're not going to quit, and you're just going to keep going, keep moving forward. Don't make any plans like I'm going to last one more day, then I'm out of here. A lot of people talk about that in some of the early stages when they're trying to wash out candidates. They start making these mental deals. Your mental deal has to be, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to keep going. I sleep when I can. I drink water if there's there. I eat food if I can, and just keep moving forward, I guess. I hope that helps. The mental side and the attention to detail are by far more important than whether you run 10K or 10 miles. Okay, thank you. Zali asks a question. What is the best alternative for someone with no access to a pull-up bar? Other forms of rows, high pulls, light power cleans. It's interesting because, right as I'm talking, I'm writing a new book on hypertrophy, and I have a whole chapter called The Cult of the Pull-Up. I guess I'll have to find a better name for it, but it's interesting when you read the old books. Well, I have a bunch here, obviously, but I also have Bosco's books in my house. And many of the traditional older weightlifting books never had pull-ups and chin-ups. And it's an interesting thing to think about. And I'm kind of breaking the chapter in a couple of big points. But we went from, in our field of weightlifting, that was a gymnastics exercise, and now it is a hypertrophy and training exercise. Now listen, I think pull-ups, chin-ups, dips, that monkey bars, rope climbing, all that has tremendous value. But when it comes to our field, sometimes I think we overstate the value of the pull-up. When I discovered this in my own life, if I want to get good at pull-ups, I don't need to get stronger at all. I just need to go to the Middle East, pick up another liver parasite, and lose 40 pounds in 2 weeks. When I went to there's a little gym in Jerusalem where I trained, and they had a pull-up bar, and I popped up there with that 40-pound weight loss, and I think I did more pull-ups that day than I ever did in my entire life. Not long after that, for a PE class, the instructor asked me if I'd show dips, and that's where I got 35 dips in a row. I'm not sure I was in better shape. I think I just was a lot lighter. There's also the issue with what I call middle-aged pull-up syndrome, MAPS, that weird elbow injury you get from pull-ups. And of course, the issue that you're referring to, Zilly, and I appreciate it, is that you don't have a pull-up bar. And in the podcast in the past, I've recommended those towers, the pull-up bar. They're usually a pull-up bar with a dip area and then a little push-up area on the bottom. It's kind of nice. I mean, it's a kind of a brilliant little design, really. And yet, when I recommend that, the next follow-up I get, I don't have the $150 to $200 to buy it, or what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? So maybe you and I are starting to fall into the same idea here. Let's just find something better. Yes, the tradition in weightlifting is the row. The only issue with the row is that when I see most people do rows in gyms, it looks like an Olympic lift, not like a strict exercise. If you're going to use rows, even if with suspension trainers, let me just tell you one little thing. I read it first from an article by Vince Garanda, the great bodybuilding trainer, years ago. And I still think there's a truth to it. When you're doing any row, always pause with your thumbs in your armpits for I was about to say 2 seconds, but a definite hold. So if I'm just doing something as simple as a single arm suspension row, when I get to here, lock, squeeze, hold, return. Now, in the article, he said it's because the lats are such massive muscles that to wake them up a little bit, you needed to take that little time with that little isometric pause. The other thing that stops you from doing it stops you from doing that herky-jerky Olympic lifting style of row. Most people, when I see them in the gyms, they row way too much load. When you're in that, and by the way, I recommend when you row that you get yourself into a hinge position. And I think when you row, you should actually feel a bit of a hamstring stretch when you're in that rowing position, even if you're doing a single arm row. And it makes sense when you do it. When you talk about high pulls and light power cleans, that is what we did as kids. I mean, we didn't, when I was training at the Pacific Barbell Club and some even in other places, the pull-up was just something we didn't do. But, if we had the Mr. Universe ourselves on the beach, we always looked pretty good because of the snatches, the cleans, the high pulls, and the light power cleans. I have a book in here on training for rowing somewhere, and rowing, sculling, rowing, that family of things, the eights and all that. And the author recommends power cleans, sets of 30. And I remember one time I tried that workout, and by the time I got into the 20s, I realized that I'd never be a rower because I just wasn't tough enough. I was stunned. But I do think power cleans, power snatches probably would work the lats very well. So what's going to happen here, Zilly, is a whole bunch of people are going to post, some comments underneath. And one of the things I think you and I have to agree on is that your question is very specific. You have no access to a pull-up bar. So are there forms or rows that would help? Yes. Power cleans? Yes. High pulls? Yes. One of the things I really did like when I first started using suspension trainers, and I tend to, there'll be months of the year while I'll use suspension trainers 3 days a week. Right now, I just use them 1 day a week. I rarely do I don't think of a time where I never use them anymore. But the real value of that suspension trainer, the T exercise, the Y, the I, and the single arm row, I think doing those exercises and, like you said, maybe some light power cleans, high rep, might be a really good idea to build up the same exercises you would build up in the pull-up without maybe some of the elbow issues and some of the other issues. It's a question that comes up, and I'm glad to answer that. Thank you, Zilly. We have a question. This one's kind of fun. It's William, and I think I said it wrong. I get it right when I'm there. And he's from Chelmsford, the UK, and I have met him many times. He's a real hard trainer, and he has a question for us. My son is 14 years old and has been playing rugby since he was 3 years old. This year, in under 15-year-olds, they are introducing gym sessions, and I was wondering what exercises you would recommend he does. All right. This will be the fastest answer I've ever given. I want you to look up anywhere you can my program called the Southwood Workout. Power clean, military press, front squat, bench press. I think those are the best 4 exercises for a young athlete. Obviously, if you can mix in some other things like general calisthenics, maybe some simple gymnastics, and some tumbling, I think those are the foundational movements for everything I do. As I always say, if you can front squat, you can back squat. Once you learn the power clean, everything else, just all the other lifts just seem to make sense. In the program, we do the rep scheme of 8, followed by 6, followed by 4. We get all 18 reps. You then move up maybe 2 kilos the next workout, or maybe just 1 kilo, depending on the athlete. But I tell you, that Southwood program, which I did in 1971, has stood the test of time, and I think it's fabulous for young kids. So thank you. So we have a question from Joe. What's the justification for putting the complexes before the Olympic lifts in your easy strength for Olympic lifting program? Wouldn't you want to go into the Olympic lifts as fresh as possible? A lot of people would say that about you need to be just, fresh. But if the complexes are taking that much out of you, Joe, point one, you really probably need to get in better general conditioning. So he's referencing a program that's in the Easy Strength Omnibook, available at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. But I also have it in the Easy Strength for Fat Loss book, I think, which is also available at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. The reason I put the complexes in the beginning is because complexes are amazing. If in a workout, I'm going to say, I'm going to use pounds. So today I'm going to snatch 165 and then clean and jerk 185. These are very light lifts for me historically, but like in my moldy oldie, it's called the Moldy 13 program. That would be one of the things I would do, a couple weeks ahead of a weightlifting meet. Well, what the complexes do, I do believe in a warm-up. I think it's important to sit at the bottom of a goblet squat every day. I think it's important to hang every day. But the nice thing about complexes is that they really do work every joint in your body. You get a little warm. I tell you, 85 pounds for 8 reps on some of those complexes are just illuminating. I remember when I first did, when I got off the velocity diet, this is a long time ago, I sent in Chris Schugert. He asked me, well, how am I training now? And I sent in some of my complexes, and he just couldn't believe the amount of work I was doing. But it's weird because 5 sets of 8 in a complex that has 5 or 6 exercises. Okay, we're doing 5 sets of 8. That just doesn't sound that hard, but it's 8 reps for every exercise in that complex. So if you're doing 5 exercises, that's a total of 40 reps. So it warms you up, gets you going. And of course, if you train like I do, where I really only use doubles and singles, triples, doubles, and singles with the snatch, and really just singles in the clean and jerk. If you can't recover in the 5 to 10 minutes after you did the complexes, you have some other issues that maybe we should have a conversation about. So the idea about lifting fresh as an Olympic lifter is a tough one. I've gone to meets in my career, especially when I was young. And by the time I got to the meet, I was already exhausted from the training to get me ready for those big lifts. There is a need for some level of freshness, yes. But, at the same time, you should be able to recover from that. Thank you. Max has a question. What are your thoughts on mobility training? Interesting question. Do you have any general recommendations? Are there any minimalist mobility programs you would recommend? I get the sense, Max, you're new to my work. Here on my YouTube channel, I actually show my favorite mobility exercises, and I actually walk you through 2 or 3 examples of the way I like to do mobility. First and foremost, we use at my gym Tim Anderson's Original Strength. Tim's a good friend of mine. I love his work, and it's reasonable. It's doable. I mean, we go prone, we do a 6-point, 8-point, we carry ourselves up. So if you watch those mobility videos, you get a sense of what we're trying to do. I also include in the library here 2 exercises. One is called the Stony Stretch, and the other one is called the Windmill Stick. I do have an article somewhere called Minimalist Mobility, where basically I tell you that if all you did was the Stony Stretch, left side and right side, followed by the Windmill Stick, left side and right side, you pretty much get a good assessment about your mobility every single workout. If you want an absolute bare minimum of a daily thing, I'll just tell you what I say in all my books is, and my recent work, sit in the goblet squat for 30 seconds, and then the other thing is to hang for 30 seconds. That 1 minute is probably, it's the miracle minute. It's probably as good as you're going to do to get your body ready for almost anything. If you do decide to do the Stony Stretch, the Windmill Stick, you fall, let's say you do each of those movements for 30 seconds. Now you get 2 minutes. Now there's your 5-minute program. I mean, sit at the bottom of the goblet squat for 30 seconds, hang for 30 seconds, Stony Stretch, left knee down, 30 seconds, right knee down, 30 seconds, Windmill Stick, look left, Windmill Stick, look right. That's pretty good. And pretty good is pretty good. On Thursdays, we go through an entire hour of original strength and mobility work. And I think one of the things I would strongly recommend to every listener is that 1 day a week, you carve out an hour. I mean, it could be less or more, and you just work on mobility. And that's the whole day. One of the things that will kind of freak you out, really, is that's also the day I get the hungriest. I am starving after that easy day, which makes me think that my nervous system, this is my theory, I could be wrong. Of course I'll be wrong. My theory is that putting myself in those positions, really puts a weird stress on my nervous system. Because, when you stretch, there's always that, you try to get yourself to the edges of a stretch. And I always think that my body is very comfortable, clean and jerking. My body's very comfortable, shoveling snow, but my body's not comfortable putting myself in a stretch and, bringing everything, trying to turn just a little more. That's my theory. But I tell you, I get so hungry after those mobility workouts. Mobility should be completely intertwined with your training. My favorite way to train, and this is at Dan John University, just go on the workout generator and you'll get this workout. But I like the idea of like doing a set of military presses for set of 8, pop to the ground, do 6-point rocking. Don't worry about the name. Just do 3 sets of that. I don't know. Do some rows at the end of each set of 8 on the rows. You pop on the ground and you do another mobility movement or another original strength movement, so that they're seamless. The training is seamless between your strength, power, hypertrophy work and your mobility work. That is the best way, I think, to train. With the one reminder, you probably should take an hour a week to just work on your mobility. That might be the thing. I mean, it might be a fun thing to do. Go to a place that does mobility work. We have a place right over here that's got those. They hang from the ceiling, and you can hang upside down. They're like big sheets. You can do that and straighten out your back, or you can do some of the other traditional practices. I'm a big fan of hot yoga when done appropriately. I think it can be great. I hope that helps. Thanks so much. So we got a question from Jason. I'm a middle school and high school cross-country coach. Going right to heaven, Jason. I coach a wide range of athletes from 5th to 12th grade, ages 10 up to 18. While I'm primarily concerned with their running performance and training, a secondary goal is to ensure that everyone in my program leaves with a good level of general fitness. As a collegiate runner who struggled to do 10 push-ups when really fit, I don't want runners to leave my program in that condition. Boy, you make a good point. I'm working with a young soccer football player, and the person is a collegiate athlete, but no level of what we would call just all-around fitness. Probably can run 2 laps and then play soccer for 20 hours, but I don't think they could. I don't know if they could jump up on the bleachers. It's remarkable. Due to the size of my team, currently 30 runners, and the wide range of ages, I focus on body weight exercises to accomplish this goal. I mix a lot of push-ups, planks, bear crawls, loving this, crab walks, toe touch push-ups, single leg Romanian deadlifts, suitcase carries, sled push, and sled pulls. And I'm also having to do my own version of the humane burpee complex, where the kids drop, do a push-up, followed by 3 mountain climbers, not bad, followed by another push-up, followed by 3 bodyweight squats. We typically do these in sets of 5 to 10. As you can probably tell, I hit the push, the hinge, the squat, and loaded carry regularly. What I seem to be missing is a true pull. Any tips on ways to get a pull accomplished outdoors with minimal equipment? Well, yeah, I mean, there's an exercise, but you got to make sure the kids take it seriously. Okay, so we got to get ourselves back to the Terminator. Okay, Predator. Oh, what a mistake. That scene where it's pushing too many pencils, and Arnold and the other guy are. So you can do a manual pull, and you got to do the hand, this kind of handshake. But what you do is you kind of get like you're going to do that old style. We used to wrestle like this all the time. In fact, in our front room, in our living room growing up, we wrestled like this, which maybe makes you wonder about, the way I was raised. But what you do is you get in that grip like this, and you go push me, pull you. I suggest a staggered grip. Now, if you're going to go right hand and right hand, put the right foot forward in the lunge, and you can go push me, pull you, push me, pull you. And that can be a very, very good minimalist exercise with the team. Downside is that some of the athletes are not going to let their partner move the pull, and some of the athletes are going to do what we call brother-in-line. Brother-in-line was a phrase we used in American football when I was young. Basically, it means I remember we had this guy. everyone thought he was the world's greatest player. And then, of course, puberty hit and he got left behind. But he and his other buddy, we would be at practice in high school. And, we'd all be doing this tackling drill. And all of a sudden, these two guys would collide. The one guy would pick up the other. It was the best, driving back in the air 5 yards. And I remember coach saying, "Are you two related?" Because basically the one kid just kind of went, jumped on the guy's back, threw himself on the ground, and made it look like a spectacular tackle, but it was a half-speed drill. So two things you got to worry about. One is not allowing the person to come back, and the other is just mindlessly doing that. If that's about as good as I can say, you can do some things like Arnold talked about in one of his books about using trees to do isometrics, but you run yourself back into the problem of people just faking an isometric. So it's your program's really good, Jason, and I wouldn't worry too much about the poll, but if you want, there's a suggestion for you. Okay, thank you. David says, in a recent podcast, you mentioned that you don't like adjustable kettlebells. Why? I don't like them. So I grew up with adjustable barbells, and generally they have enough length to make them worthy. Adjustable dumbbells, when I was young, were always dangerous. I mean, I grew up, everybody, you had to feel bad for the dads in the neighborhood because all the wrenches were in our private little, garage, or we had a porch. That's where my gym was, or bedroom. And that's because you really had to crank down those adjustable dumbbells. Otherwise you'd be pressing and they weren't very well made and they would leak off and fall. I don't like adjustable dumbbells, kettlebells, because they're, the ones I've seen anyway, just don't seem very well made. And the price point on some of them doesn't fit what you're getting. My kettlebells, and I have a lot of them, I'll be honest with you, they're going to be around a long time. In my career with kettlebells, this is over 20 years now, and I had 113 at the high school I coached at. I have 35 in my house. I've only broken, no, I didn't break it. I've only had one athlete break a kettlebell, and he was really, how can I say this kindly, not being appropriate. And that's how the bell broke. With adjustable kettlebells, the ones I've used, there's a little slack in them on certain explosive lifts. You can feel that tick, 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 and I'm not a big fan of that. Kettlebells, I think you should get, personally, I think you should buy one, probably the 16, the 20, or the 24, depending on what you want. You should master a bunch of exercises with it. You should realize that bell is too light or too heavy, and you should get another one appropriate, and then you slowly build up your kettlebell population. That's my feeling. That's my sense. I don't like adjustable kettlebells because every time I use them, I just feel like they're crap. And I'm sure someone's come out as I'm speaking with a new model, but not everything has to be, I think sometimes having just good old classic quality equipment is far better than trying to, have this magic device that fits everyone for everything. I wish I had a better response than that, but I've tried them. I don't like them, and I also don't like the theory behind them. So there you go, David. I hope that was okay. Okay, we have a question from Ross. I'm always struggling to know when to start using my weightlifting belts for squats and deadlift, and when straps might be appropriate, if at all, for the deadlift. Are there any good rules of thumb? Well, yeah. One thing I started to do late in my career, and I wish I'd have done it earlier, is I only use my weightlifting belt on clean and jerks at a weightlifting meet. And the idea behind that was to force me to teach myself to have that, and it is anaconda strength, that lockdown. So for me, I never believed you should wear a belt in snatching, because the belt, the buckle can catch on a snatch as you pull it up. On cleans, it's up to you if you want to use it. On overhead ballistic work, I prefer that you actually build, that solid core yourself. Squats and deadlifts. Now, you ask a very good question, and I like it. When is that threshold? For me, one of the things, the late great John Powell told me this. John used to wear his weight belt when he was throwing, and people thought it was do all these things. And he said, "Yeah, well, what happens is he'd either lift before he threw or throw before he lifted, but he kept forgetting to bring his belt. So he just decided when he left the house to put the belt on. So he did all of his throws for a while and all of his lifts for a while with the weightlifting belt on, so he wouldn't forget. He had a lot of other things on his mind with a full-time career as a San Jose police officer and, a bunch of other things going on too. So I just gave you two kind of extreme examples. One, and I think there's value to it, is only put the belt on when you think you need it. When I'm doing heavy lifts, early in my career, I would put the belt on, and later I realized that I needed that strength there for the field of play. So that's one theory. Only use it when you're really going after it. Theory two, keep it on for everything. Now, neither of those answers really do satisfy your question, but one of the things you might want to think about is this, and just try to get yourself a threshold number. So let's say you're doing 5 sets of squats, and let's make it as boring as we can. 135 for 5, 225 for 5, 315 for 5, 405 for 5, 495 for 5. I would say once you get over that middle warm-up, that middle lift, that's when you start wearing your belt. And of course, you're going to have to probably spend some time thinking about that. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying is, after you're warmed up with the threat of fatigue starting to show up, that's when you want to wear your belt. Now, I can't give you, do this, because there's so many variations in here. But, either only for your biggest attempts, wear it all the time, or after that warm-up session in your lifting is over. So you warm up to lift weights, and then on every specific lift, you warm up a little bit again, depending on what the lift is. Like I'm not going to warm up for a curl or something like that, but I'll warm up on a squat. After those warm-up lifts, I'd pop the belt on. All three answers are correct, and a lot of it just depends on what you want. Not what you want, but what's appropriate for you. All right, thank you. Jonathan asks a question. I'm thinking about doing a sponsored push-up, press-up challenge in November for a UK, United Kingdom mental health charity, which is 1,000 press-ups over a month, which is very reasonable. It does not sound like a lot, but I'm overweight. My current push-up max is just 8. So to get 1,000 you could do that in 30 days, So I'm just doing the math for you. If you only had 10 days, that's 100 push-ups a day. But in 30, that's only 35 or 40-ish a day, 50 if you want to take. So, if you decided to do, 10 sets of 5, you'd get there fairly reasonably. So that would just be my plan for you. And also, too, I would try to load up a lot of reps in early in the month, too. I was thinking of breaking the daily quota of push-ups into 3s or 4s to not get smoked. Is this the right approach? Absolutely. And here's the other thing I want you to think about, Jonathan. As you start stringing together those 3s and 4s, those 3s and 4s, those 3s and 4s, those 3s and 4s, what's going to happen? You're doing easy strength, by the way. This is an easy strength approach to, getting 1,000 push-ups in a month. As you nail those 3s and 4s, what you're doing is you're gently nudging up your 80%. Okay? Boom, 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 boom. So by the end of the month, if you decide to take, 2, 3, 4, 5 days off and retest your max push-ups, there are a really good chance it's not going to be 8 anymore. Repetitions, volume has a magical quality about getting our reps up. So that's good. 2, what exercises would you recommend to counteract all the push of the press-ups? Should I just do rows? First off, I would say that make sure you sit tall, stand tall, walk tall while you're doing this challenge, because there is going to be some of this. We noticed that. Gosh, I remember this back. So this is a long time. It was probably 1972. We had this push-up test we had to do for this fitness council thing. And of course, all of us who were wrestlers and all of us who were, serious lifters, we all decided to one-up each other. Well, I mean, the next day we were all like this, and the pecs were so sore. So I do think there's some ideas to it. If you have a suspension trainer, I would more recommend suspension trainer rows, suspension trainer single arm rows, and T's and the T exercise, because you're going to need some volume on that exercise. I wouldn't necessarily want you to do those bent over rows or anything while you're doing this. Just something, if you have bands, elastic bands that you can pull, hold, bring back, pull, hold, bring back, that might be just as good. Oh, absolutely, rows are fine. Pull-ups would be fine. Anything you do. There is an exercise I enjoyed a lot. I don't know how you'll set it up. You put a barbell on the lowest rung of a squat rack. I'm sure you could probably also put together 2 chairs. And what you do is, okay, if a push-up and press-up is this way, I get myself in a plank position on the floor. I reach my hands up and I do horizontal, we call them horizontal rows, but a horizontal row, and it's the opposite of a push-up. Just remember one thing, is your push-up and your horizontal row should basically have about a 2-to-1 ratio. That's the opposite of what just make sure you're hearing me carefully. Usually I tell North Americans, for every push they do 2 pulls. But when you're measuring those push-ups to the horizontal row, if you do 100 push-ups, you're probably going to be able to do 50 horizontal rows in a workout. They're that much tougher than you think. And when we would do the testing, I would hold my hand here, and the athlete had to touch my hand on the bar to make the rep count, or their partner. That is one of the hardest things for a lot of people. If you're stiff here, you get a 0 because you can't finish that lift. Just a few ideas. I hope that helped, okay? Thank you. And Jonathan, if you don't mind, let me know how you do. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And good luck with this challenge. Okay. Vincent has a question. Do you see any differences between the different types of vertical presses, namely barbell standing, dumbbell standing, barbell sitting, and dumbbell sitting? Well, I'm not a big fan of seated presses. Now, that's just because if you can do now listen, a whole bunch of you listening now, just remember my caveat here. If you're doing them a press seated, I still like you to be tall and proud. The lower back has a nice arch in your press. The issue, a lot of people do it, is they start to round, and I worry that the vertebrae are now going to start taking a big hit. So from the list you have, my favorite would be the standing barbell press. I've always, of course, I grew up in the heyday of the military press. So, anybody my age still thinks that the strongest men who ever walked on the earth were those 1960s military pressers. I was told that one time that if you can press your body weight and snatch your body weight, you're pretty strong. I got to tell you, folks, I find it a lot easier to snatch my body weight than I did to press it. I was stunned how hard that was to clean the weight and press it. So for me, I like it because there's just such that great tradition. And there is something magical about that heavy barbell press. Now, what I like about the dumbbell and kettlebell presses is that you can get that extra range of motion. And there's an exercise that you can do with dumbbells and kettlebells that I think is just one of the best exercises. Now, there's a number of ways to do it, but I'll just show you the way I usually teach it. It's called the seesaw press. So you just go like that. Now, there's other methods. I remember being at a workshop one time, and we were talking about the seesaw press, and this woman insisted that when you did the seesaw press, you went like, so left arm is extended, right arm comes down to the shoulder, hand presses it back up, then the left hand. And I thought, well, okay, there's a lot more time under tension in the lockout. There's some, but I've never seen a serious lifter do that. They do seesaw like this. The seesaw press is magical, I think. It is a great hypertrophy exercise for the shoulders. And by the way, I think the dumbbell seesaw press in a sitting position is pretty good, because most people I know, when they dumbbell seesaw press, they tend to naturally get a big tall chest. And it might be because you're getting that, the shock absorber of the shoulders. This shoulder comes down, this one comes up, and you get that here. I don't know. Barbell sitting would be the only one I would have. And let me just throw out some caveats, caveat. Just if you're going to do barbell seated, just, think through it. When I train at the Pacific Barbell Club, one of our standard exercises was the behind the neck press in the seated position. I know that, mentioning behind neck presses in this day and age, I'm going to get emails. But seated behind the neck presses were really quite safe, because you're getting caught up in your own personal range of motion. Dick used to have us bring the barbell just back to where the hairline was. So that was a good reason to keep your hair short. But that, so for me, that's about where that's where I'd catch it and push it back up. I didn't get a lot of value out of him, but a friend of mine who just died, Greg Tafaralis, was an amazing behind neck presser. I remember one time he power snatched 225, sat down on the bench, did a set of 10 like it was nothing with 225, 102.5 kilos. I was like, okay, that's why I'm not a shot putter, is what I thought to myself. I'm strong, but I ain't that kind of strong. So there's some great value. If I was now on my magic list of vertical presses, for most clients I work with, it'd be the half kneeling kettlebell press would be number one. For the athletes I work with, if they need a little bit of an engine, the clean and barbell press, and then anybody who's interested in hypertrophy or just feeling good about things, the seesaw press. Well, this is interesting. I am out of questions. My thought was there was a lot more. Well, listen, if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer them each and every week. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thanks so much.